fellas, let's start right off the bat with the biggest game of the night, and it's still going. The Fighting UConn Huskies and Vanderbilt. There is nothing else to start with. I'm just kidding.
I was about to say, women's hoops.
$2 tickets, baby. $2 tickets.
We are not in hoop season yet.
We will pay you to come to this game.
We will pay you. Let's go with the real matter at hand. Happy Valley, another whiteout. We're going to start with our resident Nittany Lion, their favorite son and ambassador, Christian Hackenberg. Hack, they took care of business tonight. And again, it has to be said, they took care of business tonight because not every big heavyweight has taken care of business. They now take another step. What does this do, setting them up for their biggest so far this season game of the year, seeing the Iowa Hawkeyes and their playoff chances?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's huge. I think it's massive. I think Iowa put together a great showing on Friday night, beating a Maryland team with a lot of momentum and a quarterback who was playing really well. Iowa showed some life on offense on Friday night, so that's going to be something to look at. But to your point, George, I mean, I think this game is going to be the biggest one for Penn State to this point, just by the way everything's played out. So definitely one to be circled. And definitely going to be interesting to see how it shapes the rest of the Big Ten moving forward for the rest of the year.
Trevor, do they have enough firepower to go up against a stingy, if not kind of underwhelming Iowa defense? Like, we don't hear a ton about Iowa. They won a couple games and they put people in like headlocks and like they like wrap it up. Penn State's got to go on the road again into Iowa. Do they have enough firepower really truly to go 4 quarters and get it done?
I think they do. You know, if you look at what Penn State has done so far this year, they've built a lot of confidence in that locker room. I think riding behind Sean Clifford and those guys up there, you know, they're battle tested, if you will, each and every week. They get out of the game, they escape, whatever you want to say. They put a beating on somebody. They've got a couple bruises going into Sunday, and those bruises are gonna propel them into the next week. I think they go to Iowa and play really, really well. I think it'll be a good game, though, too. I mean, obviously, what Iowa's done up until this point, it's going to be a hard-nosed football game, the type of game that you love to watch and that you are used to watching from the Big Ten. Us Big 12 guys, we're not used to that type of football, so it's going to be a fun one to watch for sure.
Bryce Petty, Sean Clifford, undefeated, battle-tested, seasoned veteran, but he's leading probably one of the hottest programs in the country, and he's probably the least mentioned like lead dog. We hear about everybody else. There are teams with 2 and 3 losses that we hear about their lead dog. And here Sean Clifford is, and all he's done is go undefeated from a challenging September, and he's getting ready to rock in a more challenging October. Where is he right now, and how come we don't hear more about him?
Yeah, well, I think that it's a star-studded group, right? But I think there's definitely something to be said about a kid that can execute, a kid that can put your offense in the best chance to be successful. And Hacks Mini-Me, aka Sean Clifford, does, you know, just that week in, week out. You know, they took down Auburn, 2 weeks ago, and they've got a big test on the road. And what we have seen so far to date, as we know in this, you know, locker room here that we have, when you travel on the road, it's typically always down to special teams, penalties, and turnovers. But before that, and what's interesting, I don't know if it's just coming out of the COVID environment or not, but a lot of these guys, the first thing really is to get off the bus. We've seen slow start after slow start with teams that should be kind of way better off in terms of some of these matchups. And so I think that James Franklin is going to have these guys ready to go. I think Sean Clifford is going to have his offense ready to go. Jahan Dotson and him have an unbelievable just connection. And he's a guy that can rally around the troops. So I think that if he goes and does what he needs to do, and they go into Hawkeye Stadium and go get a win, I think we will start to talk about Sean Clifford a lot more.
So obviously we have the Roman army, and then we're going to find out a way to like
But are we talking about Alabama or Georgia?
Alabama.
Okay.
We have the Roman Army, and then we'll properly tag Georgia with something. Is Penn State the next best team on the planet outside of those two teams? Hack, is it fair to say they're 1C?
I definitely think they're in the discussion, and I think as we've all watched as college football fans this year, like nothing is guaranteed week to week. Today, Oregon gets knocked out, Texas A&M falls, Florida falls. So I think up until this point this year, nothing has been really guaranteed outside of Georgia after they got past Clemson week 1, and you've seen the season Clemson's had up until this point now. And then Alabama getting through a couple of their early tests pretty convincingly. So I think they're definitely in that discussion. And I think the biggest thing for them is offensively. Tonight, they showed the ability to run the football, which is something they struggled with early on. To kind of highlight that matchup again, because I think Iowa is one of those teams that's in there. Iowa's thrived off turnovers. And I've said this every time a decent team has stepped up with Iowa, you can't turn the football over. So Penn State has been doing a good job of taking care of it. And I think they're just building the right way. Offensively, they're starting to hit that upswing on that crescendo for them to really hit their stride heading into the meat of their schedule at the end of the year.
Great word. Love crescendo.
Yep. Crescendo.
Oh, yeah.
Can we toast? Can we toast?
Hey,
to
early
crescendo?
toast. Early toast.
Yeah.
Early
Toast to
toast.
crescendo.
Shout out to Dos Equis. We love you. We
Dos
hope you
Equis.
love us. Trevor Knight, can Penn State, if they walk out on a neutral site, can they really go toe-to-toe with a Georgia or an Alabama? Now, we only have 4 or 5 weeks worth of evidence. Do you feel confident enough that the game is it's still a game in the fourth quarter / 12th round?
I think at this point, absolutely. And to some of the things that we've all talked about throughout the weeks, Penn State's got a gauntlet to go through. If Penn State survives this gauntlet and they're in the conversation at the end, they can absolutely go toe-to-toe with anybody. Right.
And real quick, Trevor, just to that point, because I had this pulled up, this truly is a gauntlet. So they go to Iowa. In 2 weeks, they go to Ohio State. In another 2 weeks, they have Michigan at home, and then they go to Michigan State.
And they got to play. They got to play Maryland in there, right? We talked about
undefeated.
That's true. Yep. That's true.
I mean,
that's true.
If they make it through the gauntlet, they're obviously going to be. I think, arguably the toughest schedule left in college football. You look at Alabama, and A&M's no longer a game for them. The West isn't quite what it is. They just got through Ole Miss, who I don't know why every year that seems to be this big matchup. They had Corral, but they obviously didn't have a problem with them tonight. And I know we'll get to that, but if Penn State can make it through that gauntlet, they're absolutely going toe to toe with anybody and could have a shot at winning the whole thing, to be quite honest. But that's a lot of games and a lot of weeks to wade through before we have that conversation.
Bryce Petty, putting you again back in Sean Clifford's shoes. You just came off another big win, second big whiteout. You already had a big win on the road at Wisconsin. You knocked out Auburn. Here you go tonight. You took care of business. What is Sean Clifford's process as a starting quarterback that's about to march? Like, we're talking just what Trevor said and Hack said, that you got a marathon march. What's your process in chopping this thing down week by week to make sure you're at the end where you want to be?
Yeah, no. I think that's really going to be, between him and James Franklin as well. I think it's going to be attention to detail. It's not going to be doing too much. And I always like watching and telling QBs this, as they start looking ahead. One, don't do that. But two, look back in the rearview mirror and see what got you here, right? See what got you to this point. Sean's got a lot of games under his belt by not doing anything too illustrious. It's just him. This is Sean's game. He relies on his guys that James puts around him. And it's a true, that's an instrument, that's a tool belt. That's a great tool to pull. You don't have to be the Michael Vick of a team to go, or the Tim Tebow of a team to go down this marathon, down this gauntlet with wins, man. Stack your guys up, walk down the dark alley and say, hey, I got 5 of my boys with me, and roll.
I think it is. That's good. That's really good.
Let's
Bryce. I think it is. It's absolutely that mentality from a player standpoint, but I think just as much so, the other 50% of it is what's the message from the coaching staff, right?
Yep.
The teams that do it year in and year out, week in and week out, those coaching staffs have a way to communicate to their players. Here we are, a couple weeks into the season. You know, the whole world's telling you you're all that or that you're nothing, right? What coaching staff's going to instill that, hey, 1 week at a time, 1 day at a time, you know, let's be even keel through this deal and go put the best product on the field each and every week so we can be in that conversation at the end of the year. It's a personal mentality and it's a cultural mentality, in my opinion.
Yeah, agree 100%.